What am I going through?
We just need to acclimate.
I don't want to acclimate. I want to go.
Absolutely not.
What's happening? I don't know why you invited us.
This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. I had a choice this Sunday to either see Crawl or Midsommar. And I didn't quite know which way to go, to be totally honest, at least for a while. From what I've heard from other people who have seen Midsommar, they tell me that it wasn't a horror movie. And in fact, people who have done reviews of Midsommar have said this is not a horror movie. So I wasn't too crazy about that idea. And then Alexander Aja's Crawl came out, and I was kind of leaning towards Crawl. After all, Aja is the guy who did High Tension, The Hills Have Eyes remake, which is so much better than the original movie. But also, he's the same guy who did The Ninth Life of Louis Drax or something like that, and Horns. Pretty mediocre movies. Aja is a great director, I honestly think, but he hasn't found his gait yet. He's not quite comfortable with what he does, and there's an element of unpredictability to his work, which is off-putting for me, in that with Aja, you may get something great, but the likelihood is you're not. So I went with Ari Aster's Midsommar. Reason being, he's only 2 movies deep, the first being Hereditary, which was, I thought, a good take on 70s horror movies, and heck, what could go wrong? I saw Midsommar, and this is I wouldn't say it's a great movie, but certainly a very good one. And unlike what people would tell you, it is a horror movie. For instance, I've read some reviews that say it's like a mediation on grief, and the movie follows phases of her suffering which correspond to the environment that people happen to be in. And I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. Midsommar is a true horror movie, and what's so clever about it is directed in such a way that it doesn't appear like a horror movie, and that's its brilliance. For instance, when I first saw it, it feels almost like a documentary to me, a documentary of this group of people in Sweden who have certain religious rituals. It never felt quite like a movie. It felt very anthropological to me. And that was very interesting, I thought. But as you watch the movie and events begin to unfold, it becomes quite obvious that this is a horror movie, without a doubt. And you can look at some elements of Midsommar that prove it definitively. For instance, let's take the cult, for lack of a better term, in Sweden. Notice how Ari sets the scene. It's all sunny and everything is beautifully framed. That's no accident. But conversely, let's say you were talking about devil worshippers. You identified the antagonists as devil worshippers right off the bat. You would immediately think what they were doing was terrible. Almost instantly, in fact. But with what the cleverness of Midsommar is that the protagonists don't necessarily seem evil. Not at first, but as the film progresses, things get progressively weirder. For me, it was when I first saw the hammer. And again, the hammer wasn't featured in the scene. It was just present. And I said to myself, oh man, things are going to get really odd. And they did. And that hammer was the clue. So, Midsommar plays with themes of grief, renewal, and that type of stuff, but it is most definitely a horror movie. And it's even more of a horror movie when you take into account that the only reason that group of young people were there in Sweden was that they were manipulated to go there. And there's a clue of the movie that reveals that. The movie sets up certain things, and there's one scene, which I won't give away, hopefully you'll see it for yourself, that gives away this is a plot. This is not a bunch of people stumbling upon this every 90-year festival. They were drawn there. They were sized up and brought there. If that's not evil, I don't know what is. And it's a horror movie again. Let's go back to the part of the movie that seems to fool a lot of people, namely the aspect of her grieving. This is, I honestly think, not a central point of the plot. It's more designed as a deception, more designed to fool you into believing you're watching one thing when you're watching another. Pay attention to Midsommar. It rewards it. And there's nothing in that movie, as far as I could see, that says that her grieving over the death of her sister and her parents is all that relevant to the plot. It's really not. But what it does in the viewer's eyes, it creates linkages. Linkages which are not there. This is a straight up horror movie. It's just a very cleverly done and interesting horror movie. And it distracts deliberately, not by accident, but it distracts from its horror movie roots. But trust me, this is a pretty creepy movie. And I mentioned the hammer earlier. The movie actually almost loses its bona fides because of that said hammer. There's a scene which I'd like to call the culling, in which a person is hit with the hammer with remarkably gory results. It happens again very soon afterwards. Again, this movie rewards you paying attention. It happens again very soon after, but it comes to naught. It goes nowhere. In fact, it almost diffuses the tension built from the first hit. And all the director had to do was not do it a second time. Literally, that's all that was needed. But he did. And I think that was an accident. That doesn't look deliberate to me. Well, he obviously wanted it to happen. That's not what I mean. I mean, it was an accident in terms of intent. Because the scene was established and the horrificness of the event with the first blow. It was done. But they did it again, which for me brought me out of the moment and made it feel more like an artifice, kind of ruining the horror. Though I think that was an accident, and if the director had looked at it again, he would not have done it. But it's a minor point. Midsommar is through and through a horror movie, and a damn good one. Check it out. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Peace.